Hello everybody! Hope you guys are all having a pleasant Monday. Sorry for my absence. There has been a lot going on, especially over at my father's place, the metal house, the Limestone, as a lot of you know. There has been a collective push over there to get things done, and of course my hand had to go up to go ahead and help him paint the place. Which, as you can imagine, on a entirely metal, enameled, porcelain, whatever coating surface is on that house, is a really difficult task. But it is starting to look fantastic, and I can't wait to share that all with you guys here soon. It is starting to become a pretty phenomenal place, if I do say so myself. And that's without any kind of furniture or anything. So, can't wait for you guys to see it. It's becoming really cool, and another little time capsule that I can't wait to share with you all. But of course, that is not the only thing that has been going on in the last few weeks. The big spoiler is the thing behind me. So before I spoil too much of it, let's get into a few time lapses and I'll explain exactly what I got going on because the shop is looking super awesome. And yeah, so we got Sandy manning the fort down here. But look at what I've got going on here. For those of you who don't know anything about my house was built in 1890 by a guy named Charles S. Brown. Now, Charles S. Brown was a pattern maker and the president of the Hall and Brown Woodworking Machine Company. This is Brown's house. This is a Hall and Brown lathe. And I have been trying for quite some time to get this area set up well enough to be able to run this beautiful thing. And it finally runs, it works, it's awesome. There are a few little hiccups and things I need to iron out with this. But let me go ahead and fire it up and show you what it's all about. But before I can turn it on, I've got to get up and grease all the bearings. We've got 2 oil points down here. We got one here. So, a little bit of oil there, a little bit of oil here. And I've got 4 points up there as well. We got 2 here and 2 here. These are Babbitt bearings, they're poured metal, and they're a much older type of bearing than, of course, the more modern ball bearings. And they require lots of oil. Now that I'm up here oiling these little spots, might be a fun time to tell you guys where the term grease monkey came from. Back in the day when these machines were run off of line shaft, they had kids come up here and oil these bearings. And because the children were small, climbing up here and oiling all these things all the time, ended up with the nicknames grease monkeys. And that's actually where that term comes from. Okay, so it's on, it's running. Beautiful noises and smells spinning in the air of oil and leather and grease and iron. But what exactly is going on behind me? What's a lathe? What is any of this? So a lathe is a woodworking machine that is used for turning wood. Examples of this being spindles, bowls, urns, basically anything that needs to be rounded out and shaped with chisels. It can be done extremely quickly with a lathe. It is a very, very old woodworking technology. And this specific lathe was probably built sometime around 1890 till about 1900, somewhere in there. Starting down here, this is the headstock. Of course, this is the piece that is getting the drive from the belts, and that's the tailstock. And between these two pieces, you would stick a piece of wood and it would stop it from moving side to side, and you would shape it with a tool that you would use on this rest. Now on this headstock here that is spinning quite slowly at the moment, we have a step pulley that connects directly above it to a counter shaft with another step pulley. Essentially what's happening between the two is you're getting a mechanical advantage. This is spinning at quite a low RPM at the moment, but if you feed it to the larger side of the step pulley down to the smaller side down here, you increase the speed down here. You can very clearly see that this pulley is spinning a lot faster than that one. That's because you're using the mechanical advantage here. This is the counter shaft. This back in the day would take power from the main shaft. So when factories back in the day, you'd have one shaft powering the whole system, usually off of a steam engine or a water wheel or something, whatever power source they had back in the day or whatever type of power they were using back in the day. At any particular shop, this would be your main power coming in, transferring it here to the lathe itself. Now there are a few peculiar things on here that I will point out. When you got these little oil catch cups, these, all they do is catch the oil as it drips from the babbitt bearings that we discussed earlier. You have these little forks that come down right here. These are actually to control the machine being on or off. So back in the day, this would have been your on and off switch. As you can see, there are two pulleys here. You can see a little line dividing them. This is the drive pulley, and this is an idler pulley. Now, the drive pulley is attached to this shaft. It makes this shaft spin. So when it spins, the shaft spins. The idler pulley idles. So essentially, it's not attached to the shaft. It spins freely on the shaft. So when you want the machine to be off, you switch the belt with these twines and this handle here off of that pulley over, and eventually your machine will come to a slow stop. Now, of course, mine's not set up perfectly to run this system, mostly because it drags on this here. And because that hits the casing here, I'm not really going to be using it very much, but I'm definitely not going to be leaving it off the machine either. But back in the day, this would be on a shaft, and so you would have a bit more clearance off the side of the pulley either way, where that wouldn't be a problem. But we do live in the modern age, and I do need some modern stuff in here, so here we go. But using a motor like this has allowed me to do one really nice thing, which is hook it up to a VFD. Now, yes, I know my wiring isn't quite perfect here. I do need to put this in some kind of conduit to keep it a bit more safe. But as a temporary measure, it's up as it is and will be fixed later. But all this really is essentially a speed controller. It's telling the motor to either spin faster or spin slower. So if I turn the dial up here, as you can see, now we're starting to spin quite a bit faster and up to what is a normal lathe's RPM, or getting close to anyways. Now, one of the next questions might be, Caleb, have you done anything with it? Have you used this tool? I have. I made a giant rosette, essentially. Just kind of messing around. Essentially, I don't have the two centers that would allow me to make things like spindles quite yet. Still working on getting those in the mail. They should be here soon. So for right now, I can only use the plates. So attaching things directly to this spinning guy here. So therefore, I can make rosettes, but no spindles quite yet. Now, is it going to win any awards for turning? No, it's actually not that pretty. It's quite beat up, a lot of pull out. A lot of this obviously is user error, but there's definitely some problems with my tools. The main one being they're not very sharp. They're antique tools as well, and they need sharpening. But not to worry, I do have a system to do that here very soon. And as soon as I can get the centers, a few other small things for this lathe, and it will be a perfectly functional tool. Okay, so let me put this in perspective for you guys, what this all means. Now, of course, this is another tool in my arsenal. This is something I will very much so be using. And it means things like the porches get put back together with the correct pieces. It means the missing spindle in the staircase gets fixed. And I don't have to hire anybody else out to do it. It means any missing rosettes I have here in the house, which I don't think I actually have any, but I do have little pieces of millwork that are missing all over the place that definitely this is the tool for it. So it means a lot of great things for the house. But more than that, this is Mr. Brown's tools. These were made with Mr. Brown's patterns. Patterns being the wooden version of this that he crafted by hand and then was cast into iron. This is his legacy, putting his house back together. And this is the first tool of Mr. Brown's. I own several, of course, that I've been able to use. That is fully mine and fully functional. And who knows how many hands, how many houses, how many things this tool before me made. It's just really remarkable, and I'm absolutely in love with it all. The sounds, the sights, the way everything feels. I wish I could share with you guys the full experience. Obviously, you can see it and you can hear it, but you can't smell it. The shavings of the wood, which obviously changes depending on species. The way the belt sounds, the click of the belt lacing as it hits the metal pulleys. It really is like stepping back in time and seeing what a workshop really would have been, what it would have been like. I think one of the things that everybody gets, in my opinion, quite wrong about is how loud these places would have been, because most of these shops that I've been through, much quieter then than they are now. A lot of the workshops that you go into today, if you go into a modern workshop, you got things screaming at really high RPMs. This stuff ran a lot slower. And the belts are not so loud. And the whole thing just spawns a lot of questions in my mind. I kind of wonder what Mr. Brown would actually think about all of this. I certainly think, what would he think about it being set up in the basement of his house? And to be honest, I don't think he would mind it so much. His wife, on the other hand, Luckily, I married a wonderful girl who has absolutely zero qualms about it, and in fact encourages me to do it, so. And of course, Sandy seems to be quite fascinated by it. She's turning into quite the shop cat. Although I'll have you know, once we really start getting into this, Sandy, you're gonna have to be sitting upstairs, because I don't trust you not to try to fight it. I think the thing I love the most, of course, about the machines are things like the needle shower or even the pull chain toilet in my bathroom. For me, it's more than any kind of restoration project or renovation project. For me, it's the ability to reach in and truly touch the past. I mean, it really is a time machine, things like the lathe here. And how many people today in our modern world get the opportunity to even see these things, let alone use them? And I feel like when I bought this place, I wandered into this really rare opportunity where I really could build a time machine. And not only could I build a time machine, but I could share a time machine. This place has allowed me not only to get my hands on history and play with it, but it's allowed me to teach it as well. I mean, how many of you guys before my channel knew what a line shaft was? For those of you who watched the original tour video I did and watched me stumble through that entire project. But when you watch that, did you know you would get a history of the Industrial Revolution, you know, of the machines that made, well, being middle class in America, or really a lot of places, possible. These are the things that brought the cost down of goods to the point where people could afford to have beautiful items in their house, and not just the ultra wealthy. These things are more than machines. They're what made our modern world possible. I don't know, I just find that infinitely cool. If you can't tell, I'm just really over the moon about this whole thing. I could just sit here and watch it, and to be honest, I've run it a few times really slow and just kind of stared at it for a while. It's definitely an entrancing mechanism and machine, and it's stunning. Of course, next thing I need to get hooked up down here is the crescent bandsaw, which still has a few little issues. Sandy's favorite perch, but I've got the motor sitting behind it. I've got to do a few little things, but this should be running fairly soon as well. But that's enough machine content for one episode. Let's get into a few of the smaller little tasks that I did complete as well this week. Quickly, let's get into this little fun project that I did this week. And while yes, this is not for my house, nor does it fit the era, this is an old milk delivery box. So when the milkman would come by, put your milk in there for you, and you'd pick it up out front. This is from a local company, and it's from the 40s, 50s, somewhere in that era, probably mid to late 40s. But my father picked this up. He thought it was really cool, but the logo was faded and non-legible, or not terribly legible any longer. So he wanted me to spruce it up and give it back its original red paint. So I did so. And I did so freehand, and I think I did a pretty dang good job, I have to say. And me coming from an art background, but not having painted anything in probably 3 or 4 years, it's still nice to know that I can still use a brush with at least some skill. So I'm quite happy with that. And of course, items like that I will work on here as well will be for the Lustron. Because if you're gonna live in 1955, when you come and visit the Lustron, you have to get milk delivered, right? And so you need the milk crate. And of course, I've been still working quite tirelessly on getting the rest of the Mansard roof pieces painted. Of course, I would have loved to get back up on the lift and get some work going on the actual front of the house. The weather has not allowed that at all. We have not had enough dry days in a row. In fact, we're almost to the point of flooding here in St. Louis right now. All of the rivers up really high, and it's currently raining as we speak, so it's been a real pain. Somehow I always forget that the month of May and April, of course, are always super wet with big storms, tornadoes, all that fun stuff. But of course that doesn't mean progress can't continue. Just has to continue inside. But all the pieces we're looking at here are just for the smaller sunburst that goes above the other dormer. And we're getting really close to having this all put back together. Needs 2 more coats of paint, which admittedly isn't a very quick process, as between coats you need about 3 days for this linseed oil paint to dry. But of course it's a lot more durable than any kind of latex or oil-based Or at least so they say, and so I am hoping. So, slow process when it comes to painting, but longevity into the future. And as far as I'm concerned, I will take quality and longevity over speed any day. So that's going to be the end of the episode, guys. I hope you guys did enjoy. I am sorry for my absence, but sometimes you get bogged down with so many projects, a lot of which don't have anything to do with the house. There's been a lot of stuff bubbling behind the scenes, things I have to take care of and things I have to do. All positive, nothing crazy, nothing negative. Life's been quite good here. And as always, I feel quite fortunate to be in the situation I am in. I would love to show you guys, of course, more of the work I've been doing over at the Lateral. But so much of it has been paint recently that I don't want to sacrifice my camera in that environment, because it will end up with paint all over the lens because I'm spraying all of it over there. So unfortunately, that will have to wait until a bit more of it's done. And I can't wait to bring you guys another little tour and show you guys how that all's going. But in the very near future here, I do hope to make more of a push here at the house. I have some very big plans this summer, excluding just, of course, the front. Of course, there's a lot of plans for the facade. This house will not look like the same house at the end of this year, that is for sure. But of course, there are more rooms inside the house that I would like to take care of as well. And I've really been eyeing the dining room recently. Mostly because it's in a spot and doesn't have exposed ceilings and stuff, so I can actually do some work in there without the possibility of having to rip anything I do back out. So it's a really good candidate. It's obviously a beautiful, beautiful room. And even though it requires quite a bit of work, I'm really up to it. Can't wait to learn some of that more intricate plaster work. I think that sounds like a really fun challenge. Oh yeah, almost forgot to tell you guys. The water outside works. The quail is, well, she's spitting out water. Which of course will be very helpful when the rain does stop and I can get to the outside of the house again and do some real work. I foresee some very, very warm June and July days with me out there in the sun yet again. But that's okay. Everything I do here is always, of course, worth the effort. So can't wait to bring all that with you guys. Hopefully you guys can watch it all in an air-conditioned room where you're not dying. So thank you guys as always, and I'll see you guys again next time. Till then, take care. Bye-bye.